All right. Well, that's Essex. I feel like it wouldn't have been Essex if we all made it out.
Accurate.
That was a
Yeah.
good game, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that there's like this resolution where it's like, the few passengers, who survived are like, yeah, totally, this is nothing. But I'm like, literally the only car remaining was the engine, so like unless they scrambled into the engine.
No, we did it with plenty of time left. There were 3 cars. There was a passenger car and a baggage car left too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what? Oh, we didn't just. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah, no,
were all-
it gives you one chance at the engine car itself.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean that was pretty comfortable. Yeah.
For you.
For Essex, it's about as smoothly as it could go.
It's crazy that this scenario that has such a time crunch and all these enemies that are like gumming up your movement and everything also has treacheries as brutal as it has.
The problem is the way that the cultists work, entering the empty locations,
Yeah.
right? Because then it can daisy chain along itself, like along the train, and just cost you time upon time upon time every time one of them shows up.
They're like ancient evils that leave behind an enemy you also have to deal with when you get there.
Yeah, and it's like when we did this in the Iron Man, it took longer to set up than it did to complete and lose the scenario. Like that Iron Man run, like
I
the
remember
first
that,
Iron Man. Yeah, and the Wizard of the Order was the last draw, meaning he went all the way to the engine.
Like, well, that was fun.
Oh.
That might have been my last time playing this. No, I guess I did return when it came out, but like, yeah, this is about always my expectation with it. It's just like, it's kind of a crapshoot, honestly. Like, is the train gonna fill up or not?
It's true. I actually like this scenario a lot because it's still 50 scenarios in. It still feels super unique, and it's
it does that.
It's brutally difficult without getting that difficulty through like excessive complexity, which there aren't very many scenarios that do that. I don't know. I like it, and the consequence for losing is like you get a weakness.
You get some
it's
extra
also kind of
experience.
interesting because you get a story weakness, and that's all that really happens.
Yeah, the story weaknesses are an underexplored mechanic, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the game hasn't. Honestly, have there been any since Carcosa? Have there been story weaknesses?
Is Lost Soul Carcosa?
Lost Soul is Carcosa.
I wanted an Innsmouth look weakness, right?
Yeah,
like for Return to Innsmouth, it's got to happen. You got to be part fish person.
Yeah,
right?
you got to be fish peopled.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been surprisingly long since the last time.
No, we had one. We had one in TFA. It was the.
Poisoned. Juckins on.
I wasn't thinking.
Of course.
How could we forget everyone's favorite mechanic?
Yeah.
I was thinking of the one like the captured mind or whatever the hell that one's called.
Yeah.
That one's a really cool.
Yeah, that's right. You only have it for a scenario or two because it's late in the campaign, but
it's after 6 you get it if you get turned.
I don't think I ever have gotten
it. You have to do specific conditions to get it and not just lose the campaign anyways. At that point.
Yeah. Well, you have to. I think it's you finish with like. You finish out as the Ithian, right? That's how you get it.
You have to screw up the transfer process or something.
Yeah, like you draw a skull or something during the transfer.
Yeah.
False Awakening, that's the one. Oh no, that's in Dream Eater. Psychopath is saying in the chat.
Oh yeah. I've never gotten False Awakening. I don't think.
I have wiped that from my memory. False Awakening. I don't.
Is that the one that puts a doom on the agenda? Yeah. That one also has a weird condition that you have to like.
Yeah.
There's a weird chain that has to happen to get it. I think.
I don't think I've ever had that one in my deck.
Yeah. I think you're right. Lose on the moon to then do it. Yeah.
I think the moon gives you a lot of time, though, right? From what I remember, maybe not.
The back half of that campaign is kind of where just like. If the story just kind of needs to happen, otherwise it doesn't make any sense. So we're just going to put you where you need to be in order for it to happen.
Well, good game. I feel like this was a very good Essex game. Like it was exciting. It was challenging.
This was great. I felt like we had a pretty good handle on things. I thought people's decks were firing.
on some cylinders.
On par?
Yeah.
Is this sarcasm? I can't tell with you.
No, I don't know. I thought this was a pretty good game. I don't know. Check and confirm or just unconfirm for me.
I was very happy that I got double bows happening. That's all I really cared about happening.
Yes, yeah, you got your bow and your bow.
Hey, I had 2 tarot weaknesses, and I only had to deal with one of them. It was,
Yeah.
And you cycled your deck once, so that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I'm still pissed at Kyle for rating that luggage.
It was the best move. If you had done it the same turn, you would have immediately lost it. Just think of that.
Well, I couldn't have done it. If I could have done it the same turn, I would have done it.
You could have. I just went first.
So was everyone running cards from Edge of the Earth?
I was running
I was,
Fang and
Nathan
Brand.
I ran the bow.
And you had the bow. Yeah, okay.
And
well, I guess this
Sweeping
isn't
Kick,
the review
yeah.
show, but like, are you, do the prospect of these cards excite you for like continued exploration?
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
I have like the box. It's funny, the box as a whole, I kind of find underwhelming, largely because it doesn't actually have like I enjoyed like the Curse and Blesses so much, and this doesn't have hello Neville.
Synergy.
This doesn't have a new mechanic in the way that like Myriad and Bonded or Bless and Curse were. This isn't doing anything new. It's just kind of a lot more fundamental Arkham.
There's the synergy one that you don't like.
Yeah, and I think synergy is. I actively dislike the premise of multi-class cards, and I think synergy is not good. So that doesn't redeem it for me at all.
To the number of cards you control of different classes.
Synergy is the trait that is on cards.
Yes.
Like synergy itself is not a keyword; it doesn't do anything, but it's the trait that's on the cards that count the number of classes you have in play. Which I don't like for a few reasons. I think most of the synergy cards are bad, and I also think they're nonsense from a flavor perspective. Like Gang Up is a card that shows like a posse of people beating up a ghoul, and it's like it does 2 extra damage if you're holding a Grizzly Totem for some reason. It's about the most abstract the game has ever been, in a way that I don't really like.
Yeah, we were actually talking about that. It'd been so much better if it was like a great Leo card that was just like for every ally in play, this event does +1 damage.
Right. Yeah. If Gang Up was just the number of allies you have or something, it would have made more sense.
But then it almost becomes a single investigator card if it refers to that specific edition.
Yeah, I mean it would have made more sense in Leo's box, than to just release it here.
Sure.
But
I mean,
so in a macro sense, I like don't like the box that much, but then there are a lot of individual cards that are like very strong and pretty interesting.
I'm only asking because like this is the first time that we've played publicly, like with the Edge cards. So I just want to see like
Yeah,
I think it's a cool box, but I think that it is the way that the investigators work and level up skews so much of the design in like how the classes evolve, like from level 0 to the leveled up cards. Yeah. Like the low level Mystic cards in the box are combat related, but then obviously they can't be because Lily can't run them later, right? They have to be Norman cards. And that adjustment and expectation is a lot to consider, I think, because this is also like the Arkham that we're going to get for 2021, right?
Sure.
And for most of 2022, really.
Yeah, and also for 2022, probably.
I think in general, Brandon seems a little bit more down on the new cards than but I totally agree with him in I really just dislike multi-class cards, mostly because I'm like, I feel like they just don't have their own identity anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it dilutes the identity of the classes, and I think the fact that these are mostly leveled up makes me a little bit less critical of them on this, but in the Circle and Dawn, I felt like the multi-class cards were just shiny golden neutral cards. Like literally 3/4 of investigators could take each one. And so the leveled up helps address that some, but only some. And the nature of like they're not. So gold cards in Magic cost you both of those. So it's not that you have one or the other, it's that you have both. And so it makes sense that it rewards you with like letting you do some of what each of those colors does or combines those two colors' identities into something new and powerful. But this one is one or the other, so it should and generally is like a blue and purple card is weaker than that card would be if it was just blue or just purple. From like a balance perspective, and I think that's not compelling or fun to be like, all right, the cool thing in this new box is that the cards can be taken by more investigators and thus are a little weaker to make up for that. Like, is not actually a great theme for an expansion.
Yeah.
But again, from on a card by card perspective, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff and a lot of strong stuff. And I like the investigators quite a bit. So like I'm. Now that I've like gotten into playing with the cards and stuff, I'm a little higher on the box than I was. But from a macro level, I think it's not my thing.
Yeah. Again, I think it's like just the confluence of all of the characters work and level up in this way.
Yeah. And
then all of the cards have to be quote unquote like usable, right, within that context. I think that's such an adjustment from like 2 cycles down the line. Here's this great Mateo card or something, right? Yeah. Versus just kind of like, okay, everything in this box is effective more or less for everyone else that could, everyone relevant that could run it within that core. I don't know. Again, this is just because like this is the first time we've played with them as a group, and I was interested to see like who gravitated towards what. And it's like, we got the bow on the table, and the bow I think is a niche effect, but still kind of cool. And we got Sweeping Kick and Brand of Thuga, which is, Brand of Thuga is basically a gun that you don't hold in your hands.
Right.
Yeah, I think the bow's really, really good for a very small amount of investigators and pretty bad for most others. Just because it's occupying 2 hand slots and an arcane slot.
Yep.
Which is pretty challenging. I mean, unless you're running it as like a guardian mystic type person and you have like, Bandolier 2 out and you're like, okay, it's only taking up 1 arcane slot really. That's much more palatable. But like, I think survivors are going to take this more than mystics are, hands down.
Yeah, and that's what's happening with the multi-class cards, is that they should theoretically be like the overlap of what classes can do, but they aren't always. So they are diluting, they are letting classes do things that they like kind of quote unquote shouldn't be able to do. And how badly that annoys you is up to you. It's up to how much you appreciate kind of each class having its own identity. But I'm a person who really likes that, and like really always really loved that about Magic the Gathering, how strongly it enforces those boundaries. And so when I see it diluted like this, it disappoints me here.
Well, we'll see how many edge cards you include next game, I guess.
I mean, like I said, I think a lot of the cards are strong and are fun. So I'm not saying like, oh, I'm probably not going to be playing many of these cards. That's not actually the case. I just it's not the set I would have designed if I were in Maxine's shoes, and that's fine. That's fine. I'm not in Maxine's shoes.
I have to say that Blur is maybe one of my favorite cards that I've seen in a long time.
Blur's wild. That card seems
Blur is just, it finally is like giving that payoff to like a spell of 8, which is just like, unless you're playing TFA, weaker than all of the other spells.
Yeah,
no, I really like that. 'Cause getting that extra action back is, again, like Arkham 3rd, is like, it feels much better to evade enemies in that
Definitely.
It is wild looking at, like, I still have Tabletop Simulator up, even though the stream has just been on us for the last few minutes. Looking at Brand, like, I think part of why I say I will be playing with a lot of these cards is it's just a lot of powerful cards. Like, this is, I don't know. I haven't even finished looking at these because I've only been looking at them on like a need to know basis. And
you were doing
them or as we play them.
You were doing
but
Guardian stream.
Like, I think Brand of Cathagua is better than 45 automatic level 2 or Shriveling level 2, I think.
Interesting.
And it's a level 1 card that either of those classes can play. It doesn't do quite as much raw damage as either one, but it's cheaper in resources and has the flexibility of doing 1 or 2 damage. I think that it's not like strictly better in a really apples to apples way, but I do think it's probably power creep. I think I'm going to be playing this over either of those two cards forever.
Really? I actually
yeah.
felt quite the opposite when I read this card. I was like, it's like 6 damage and potentially lost actions.
6 damage as you designate it, though.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like, it can't wind up with overkill the way that a gun might or whatever.
Sure. I feel like I honestly have not run a single-handed pistol in a deck in the longest period of time.
Yeah. So maybe the game, the power level has moved past those anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I still maintain. I think Arkham on the whole is a game that rewards hyper specialization in that like the combat deck runs its combat options, right? And the investigation deck runs all of its investigation options. And so like brand is a redundancy to a gun, is a distinguishes it differently from like, oh, it's just a combat spell instead of shriveling or whatever. I don't know. In which case, I would, if I could run shriveling, probably still would, or Azure Flame, right?
So, yeah. But no, I think you're right, Brandon, and some of the people in the chat saying like that 2 cost is probably it like hits you significantly less hard than a 3 or 4 cost.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this game was a perfect example of how much, because it's not just a numbers game of okay, how much can I play over the course of the game. Like, because depending on how much econ is in your deck, you can probably spend like 20 resources on average over the course of a game, or there's some number, and so like yes, it depends on how much you can do, depends on those costs, but also just whether you can play it when you need it depends on what that cost is, and that's I think the bigger impact almost. That's why I was just I'm actually, it's supposed to be a surprise when I guessed on it, but I recorded a podcast today with that if you listen to Arkham podcast, you might hear me on there, and we were talking about like dodge level 2 and just how critical it is that reduces its cost to 0, so you can always afford it when you need it. And I think that's the big reason that cheaper cards are so much better and are worth paying experience for. Or in this case, paying less experience for when you compare it to Shriveling 2 or 45 Automatic 2.
Yeah. I just like that there's an option now for it. Like we've never seen something that does, instead of combat, you can use either your willpower or your agility. Like that's really cool in the Enchanted Bow.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it makes it a Rita card or a Akachi card or whatever. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and Rita definitely needed something else besides for just the bow.
Like, I guess. Like again, when it's.
Oh, this is your first blush impression, right? Because you haven't looked at the card.
No, I haven't seen this card
until
before.
now. Yeah. Okay.
To a lesser extent, like when I don't like dilution of what the classes can do. Like the dilution of what the skills are for, I think can also be a little bit disappointing. And this being a card that literally 3 out of the 4 skills can be applied to, just basically it's not that different from a card that says
it cannot use combat. It has to replace it.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Okay, I misread that.
It has to replace it with 1 of 2 skills.
Yeah.
But
all right. Okay. Then you're right. I had misread it, thinking that it could be all 3, and then I was gonna say like it might as well just say test any skill.
To which I actually agree with you. I think that agility becoming more useful is a negative impact on the game. In that it basically makes combat, obsolete as a skill, or can risk doing that, because if you can use agility to do whatever you want in the game and also have it as a defensive stat, why would you ever run a combat character unless you expressly wanted to? But
everyone will just run Wendy for the rest of the game.
Wendy or whatever.
And that kind of was like, that's always been a quote unquote problem with Mystics and willpower, but at least that was kind of Mystics' uniqueness. Right? Okay. And now everyone's doing that. Now everyone's just converting all their tests to their best stats and like,
I think on a limited, a card-by-card basis, I don't consider it exactly problematic. And of course, Mystic, as their like entire shtick, right, is like, oh, we can do whatever if it uses, once we play the willpower version of it. I think that's a separate issue from oh, it's a weapon, and it uses the other stat that you use for enemy management.
Yeah.
That is problematic versus, oh, this otherwise dead stat that we can now attack with or whatever. That's a separate discussion, but
we should probably have like, we don't have to stop the conversation now, but we should probably have like somewhere where we can let Brandon cut so he can cut out this last.
Of course, yeah.
I don't think I would cut this out. Like, this has been a good conversation. I don't know how many people are going to find this at the end of a 3-hour YouTube video and listen to it, but I don't think I
was independently curious and really wanted to hear.
I don't think I was even thinking already. Like, this is a good conversation. Like, should I cut it out and make it a standalone video?
I know. I was thinking the same. I was like, well, we can keep on talking, but I don't know if we should tag this along with the video.
I've thought about that before too. On Arkham and every game, we tend to, when we're recording playthroughs for the channel, we tend to talk about how much we liked the game afterwards and stuff. And I've thought about putting those out as separate videos at times.
I think it's warranted. But I have long encouraged you as a personal note to do it. So take that for what you will.
Yeah. So Kyle, what's your review of leg injury?
Would you run it again? You have a solution to this card, it will sit in your threat area for the entire game.
I mean, yeah. So I was.
And when actually my bigger review is when your fighter refuses to help you kill the enemy, you end up sitting at a location for turns on end.
I think I played that correctly. I'm not going to apologize. Well, and I was gonna say, like, man, having this at the start of a campaign right after you've built your deck and didn't include any healing is pretty brutal. I mean, obviously, just about every class has cards you can then upgrade your deck to deal with that because you have this weakness, which
every single character can buy Thermos for 1 XP.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
Yeah, so
I think game kills or whatever.
I think I like this. I've always thought the weaknesses that really, I mean, every weakness does to some extent, but the weaknesses that really do push you to have to spend a little bit of effort modifying your deck to accommodate for it, I think are great, and I think these are cool. I think these really pull that off. Like,
no, I know, and the same thing that we had the other day with, I can't remember the horror version of this weakness, but it was one of those things where we were playing standalone to go over the cards that you would talk about in your podcast today. Yeah. And I was playing, a fighty Clue Joe, whatever his name is, Joe Diamond.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's him.
And totally forgot that I had included a one of
logical reasoning.
Logical reasoning, terror, or horror healing card. And I was like, crap, I don't have any horror healing. And it wasn't until like the moment where I flipped it over on my hunch deck and I was like, oh my god.
So that's kind of like the best encapsulation that I can think of for that suite of cards that are like, they can be removed as if they were damage or horror, right? It's like the weaknesses are added as like the last part of deck building. So if you build without them, you find that you have one, and then you spend that 1 XP on Thermos or your smoking pipe or whatever, right?
Yeah, you get kind of, in a campaign, you get hosed for one scenario, but then you should be able to do something about it.
One scenario is probably not going to kill you. Knock on wood, right?
Yeah.
Like, you won't die in the one scenario.
Apathetic sums up the other side of the coin well in the chat, where the opposite of what I'm talking about, and what I agree, there's too many of these. It's just the double action remove them, because there's nothing you need to do. There's nothing you need to do modify in either your gameplay or your deck building to deal with that. And I feel like in the last couple boxes there have been few, if any, of those. Like, maybe we did kind of figure that out and get away from so many of those. But
I mean, I loved when the multiplayer weaknesses came out.
Yes.
Like narcolepsy is
ones
hands down my favorite weakness, and like has some of the funniest moments of the game where it's like, don't worry, I'll save everyone, and runs away from the party and then falls asleep immediately. It's the funniest, like,
it is.
Narcolepsy is just gonna inherently be funny, I think. In the game. Self-centered and kleptomania too. Yeah, I think those are high points on like the evolution of weakness design, and the hidden ones maybe less so.
I like the hidden ones. The ones where you have to overdo it on something.
I like a hidden weakness in principle. I don't like that it can just be a complete misalignment, right? In that, like, I drew the combat one, and I don't have anything that does damage in this deck.
That's
so
yeah.
Okay. Those ones I don't care for. I like the idea behind them. Otherwise.
I'd agree, and I guess that's true. If you were to draw the damage over the overkill weakness in like a Norman campaign, like honestly, I'd probably be okay with you redrawing your weakness, like because that's just unreasonable for you to deal with for an 8.
I mean, like I could have built like I have shriveling or whatever.
I guess that's true. I guess that's interesting. As long as you have access to something, that is interesting. If it's a multiplayer game and you were not planning on doing a single point of damage, now you kind of have to say, like, well, I really need to put in 2 shrivelings, and so maybe everyone else adjusts a little bit. And
I think like XP is such an important part of the game. I wish it just did something different.
Yeah.
I think reducing your XP gain by 2 is so, and it's like brutal because it's only hitting you too. So it's like, well, my teammates got 4, I only got 2. So am I gonna devote these 2 XP to now trying to weed out this weakness, or I'm gonna try to like continue to build the deck that I want to build? So I just feel like they could have done something like in game, like these are really nice, where it's like, while you have this card in your hand, maybe you can't take this action or you can't do this thing.
I agree. Like the ones that adjust play pattern are more interesting than the ones that are just like XP is just kind of like a binary thing. You earn it or you don't, right?
Right.
So I've been playing with Scott Mythos Socials. We've been playing Innsmouth, and he got the offer you can't refuse that grants you 2 XP when you add it to your deck, but then you have to constantly have 5 resources, otherwise you upgrade it, right? Until you're eventually driven insane.
I love that.
And that has had an interesting effect on his playstyle, right?
Still in the chat. Hi, Scott.
He is great. I don't know if you've got a comment on this, right? Like, I think that is an interesting state that it imposes on the game, where he has to sit on 5 resources until he sees it, because there's just no other workaround. Otherwise, he risks advancing it on its little.
And I think that's what makes it fun too, is that it's not a permanent card saying you must have 5 resources at all times. You can risk it. You can drop down to 3 resources, and that's what you're doing, is you're taking a risk, which I think is fun.
Yes, definitely.
Similar is that new card that does a similar thing, where it's like you buy, you take the bank loan out, and you pay it back by the end of the scenario. They break your kneecap.
I don't know if Brandon's looked at that, because I don't know if that's in his.
I think I saw it, or I think Kyle and I looked at it when he was deck building for Bob.
Okay,
so I haven't seen it. Yeah.
I look forward to the review of that one then.
It's very funny.
It is such a great
especially
card.
for the accountant.
Yeah. I don't know when I would play it, but I love that it exists.
Uh-huh.
Oh, man. Okay, well, good game, good chat. We should probably call it a night.
Past midnight, so yeah.
Yeah, on a Sunday night. A big week ahead, I'm sure. It's already Christmas here. We put our Christmas lights up this weekend, so. Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays, November. Whatever.
November 15th or whatever.
And that's the thing. It's less than 2 weeks till Thanksgiving. I guess it's happy holiday season, regardless. Anyway, chat, thank you so much for joining us. Always fun to have everyone here. And whether you're watching this on Twitch or YouTube, thank you for watching. We'll be back soon with more. What comes after Essex? Is it Blood on the Altar?
Blood on the Altar.
Okay. Well, cool.
Which is when the campaign gets like actually really hard, in my opinion.
Really?
The last four can kind of just crush you.
I guess.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
I think typically also, I'm talking from like the full campaign perspective, where you don't usually do well in Essex, and then you have like this XP spiral of like, I get 2 or 1 XP for the rest of the campaign.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully that's not an issue in the standalone.
Yeah,
right.
That's why I was like, oh, maybe it won't actually be bad, because like we won't be like just dying throughout the rest of this campaign.
But yeah, we will at least, like, we found the first few scenarios pretty arguably easy, as we were coming in with like 29, 39 XP decks, and at least I think the further we get into the where in a campaign these standalone scenarios belong, that will fade away. So I think that'll be good.
I actually have some ideas we can talk about off air for like how to leverage expected difficulty and expected like deck level, but we can again talk about that later.
Okay.
But,
okay. I'm intrigued.
But Scott is yelling about his arid climate, so I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, I don't know what he's going on.
I don't know. You should talk to a doctor about.
But he's freaking me out a little, so we better go.
What? Wait. Ray? Oh, Ray?
Yeah, he wants us to raid another Twitch channel, but I'm sorry, I'm not gonna pull up a Twitch window and figure that out at this point when we're trying to sign off. So
sorry,
another time.
We love you.
Bye, Scott. Okay. Yeah.
All right, thank you for watching, everyone, and thank you guys for playing as always. And until next time, be optimal. Bye.
Bye.